Inside Story Uganda, real source of political updates.
Aviation, which I find strange. So he understands so many technicalities of things. Then he has a passion for sports, Formula One, which is racing, tennis, basketball,
Football,
soccer,
obviously.
Soccer, yes, or what you call football, basketball, and practically so many games. He personally plays tennis. So when you sit with him, like sometimes I'm visiting him, we have to watch a match. Maybe it may be Arsenal playing Manchester United and Manchester United is thrashing Arsenal. He supports Arsenal, I support Manchester United. You see, he is a fan or a person who enjoys the entertainment value of the game. So he will enjoy the game and its play. But even beyond that, he also plays the role of a manager at the strategic level, looking at the placement of players and the way the manager has decided to play the game. So he'll be discussing also the strategic issues beyond the game, rather behind the game. But he does not stop his discussion only on the strategic issues of how to play football. He goes into the business that runs these clubs.
Yeah.
That's why you see this visit Rwanda now on PSG t-shirts, on Atletico Madrid, on Arsenal. You saw with this basketball, the LA Clippers. So he because he understands the business behind the game. So he will discuss that. So he's not a person who is so all round in sports, from the business, strategy, and entertainment of the game. And also its youth component. By the way, also, President Kagame understands quite intuitively its political value. Just imagine you're a Rwandan youth. There is an important game of basketball. The other day we had last year, what do they call it?
BAL.
The BAL, yes. And you are a sports fan. Remember, young people are into sports. And your president is in the stands with you. There is a soccer match. The president is in the stands with you. I do not know whether you people realize how much appeal President Kagame has among young people. They could die for him because he reflects their aspirations, their way of life. Just imagine there is a musician, Kendrick Lamar, is in Kigali, is at the Kigali Arena, has a concert. Guess who is there? The president and the first lady. Before Kendrick Lamar comes on stage, the president goes and gives a speech of 2-3 minutes. And the kids see their president is with them in their thing. They would imagine he would be an exclusive person somewhere else, but he's with them enjoying that moment. The capital, the political capital it buys him is so big now. That's why if you move across Africa, youth, young people are so crazy about him. I am sure if things worked in perfect ways and he competed in any of these countries, he would beat any other contender against him because he relates to youth that way. And they're able to relate him back. They see him as a cool dad.
No, I hear you. Do you, of course, you're talking about sports, business, and aviation, among the things that you talk about. Do you ever talk about geopolitics? So much.
Now, you leave geopolitics of Africa here and Congo and Uganda and whatever.
But then I think it's important.
If you discuss with him global issues, the rivalry between America and China, the emergence of these new powers like Brazil, India.
The BRICS.
Yes. I mean, his grasp of these international issues is voluminous. I don't know how much time he spends reading and following these things. But even inside the politics, internal politics in UK, in France, in the US, these countries that matter, there can be news and we'll have a discussion on what are the key issues that are driving politics. He predicted in 2016 that there was going to be Brexit. These guys were going to be beaten. And the Brexiters would win. He also predicted Trump. Many Americans never thought that Trump would win, but imagine the president in Rwanda there who was saying, this Trump is going to beat these people. He used to tell us in the Presidential Advisory Council, by the way, the Americans only were shocked when finally Trump won because nobody gave Trump a chance. But so that is the man. You can discuss with him anything. Now, there are issues where then military strategy. Who can beat him in that area? So
and those are things you discuss. Military strategy. You go into any kind of detail.
So it would depend. Like, assuming we were to discuss America's involvement in Vietnam, or discuss something about the Second World War, or discuss the war in Gaza, he would look at both the political and military. Remember that according to Clausewitz, and President Kagame is a good student of Clausewitz, war is politics by other means. So any war has political objectives. At any one time, the political objectives must remain in the mind of the soldier and the people leading an army. Otherwise, you may end up having a senseless war. So when the guns stop, they should stop only because you have realized the political objectives for which you went to fight.
And you discussed, Uganda is obviously probably one of Rwanda's most important strategic partners. When things go well, everything goes well. When things go left, things go left, and they go left quickly. Do you get a chance to sit down with him? And there was obviously what happened before, that led to the border closure, and there's where we are now. Do you get a chance when you sit down with him to kind of go through where the relationship between the two states is? And does he follow what's happening in Uganda keenly?
Yes, he does. And that is perhaps the one thing me and him have discussed the most. The relationship between Uganda and Rwanda, because it has been complicated, it has been stressful sometimes, and something that concerns him. He grew up here, so he has a keen interest in whatever happens in Uganda. He has friends here.
What don't people know that because you sit so closely with him? What don't people know about the reasons why things don't work? Because everyone on every side, whether it was journalists, everyone was coming up with their own hypothesis of the challenges. But obviously, you know a lot more than we do. Because to know the challenges is then to be able to ensure that they don't reappear. It's prevention is always better than cure. What didn't the average Joe on the street know about what was actually the cause in a larger framing, right? So we remove it from individuals, right? Because individuals can change. But are there certain foundational issues that, whether it's young Ugandans, young Rwandans, need to understand so that we ensure that the challenges just don't come back ever?
That's a profound question you have asked me. So when Uganda and Rwanda started the quarrels, 2018 there, they started slowly. You cannot easily mark a date, but they reached an escalation point in 2018. In 2019, I wrote an article, and I said I have been an envoy of President Museveni to President Kagame, and President Kagame's envoy to President Museveni. So I was a go-between. Said you should go back to March 2019, because I was in Japan when the border was closed on February 28th. I must have returned about March 8th. So around mid-March, I wrote a long article. It's even a post, I have it on Facebook. I said, President Kagame had consistently told me what issues he had with Uganda, and I enumerated them. So I knew the issues. On the other hand, I had tried to, each time I talked to President Museveni, he said he doesn't have a problem with Rwanda. So, but when I meet soldiers, chiefs of intelligence of Uganda, ministers, they give these rumors on the side. Rwanda has not done this. Rwanda has done this wrongly. But these are things that are said in buzz. There's been no official communication between Uganda to Rwanda to say this is a complaint we had. So I said I'll write a second article to explain what my feelings are as the cause of this conflict, which was asking me about the individual, to remove the individuals. So that article was published in the Independent and was posted on Facebook. I did the second one, and it was never published. I was requested not to publish it, politely, not to publish it. So
Who requested? Okay.
So
you'd been asked to choose a side.
I was asked or warned. I don't know what to say. Just don't
put your thoughts out there.
Don't put your thought out there. So I will not go into the details of it. But the point I was making in that second article is that my own feeling is that there is structural stress between Uganda and Rwanda because they're involved in strategic competition, strategic security competition in this region. Especially in the DRC. Are you talking about the DRC in this case? In the entire region. I have this sense. Now remember, I'm trying to second guess President Yoweri Museveni. Sure. Because he has not given me his views, he holds his cards close to his chest. President Kagame was very open with me. I do not know whether there is an issue he felt in his heart, in his mind, which he did not share with me. So I feel very confident when I'm talking about his position. President Museveni, maybe he didn't trust me enough. Maybe he thought I'm Kagame's spy. And if I was in Museveni's shoes, certainly I would not trust him. When I would think...
He's Kagame's spy.
Yes. Although earlier on in 2011 and 2017, he had trusted me and they had been a go-between. So I felt when I look now as a geostrategist looking at issues of grand strategy, President Museveni has been the security czar in this region. So like right now we have our troops in Congo. We have our troops standing guarding and holding South Sudan together. We have our troops in Somalia and in Equatorial Guinea. So basically, Museveni is the go-to person if you are Americans or Chinese or Europeans or Indians trying to understand this region and do something in it. Whether it's business, whatever you want to do. Now there is a very small neighbor, and you consider him a junior neighbor, who also is playing in that strategic market of security. So he has troops in Mozambique,
Central Africa,
in the Central African Republic, in Congo, maybe something in Sudan, and I feel like things like that are likely to. They push into strategic competition in that space, and that leads to structural stress. So if you ask me, beyond the individuals, the UPDF and RDF are these organic militaries that were built from scratch. They are not inherited colonial armies that you see in other African countries. These are organically developed
revolutionary armies
from the scratch. Yes, the revolutionary armies. So it is unlikely that even if we change the individuals, it is not easy to construct peaceful coexistence. There would always be structural tensions resulting from that. And I take this also from looking at geographic space and historic time. Wherever a revolutionary movement has supported another revolutionary movement in a neighboring country, they have always ended up in conflict. So the Russians supported the Chinese Communist Party. The two of them in 1980 went to war. The Chinese Communist Party supported the Vietnamese. In 1979, the Chinese invaded them. Uganda supported Rwanda. You know what happened. Eritrea supported the TPLF, supported the EPLF. The EPLF supported the TPLF to take power in Ethiopia. They went to war. So it is rare. The Vietnamese, actually, Communist Party supported the Khmer Rouge, which was a Communist Party in Cambodia. Later, Vietnam invaded Cambodia. So Rwanda supported the Kabilas, and Rwanda, they fell out. So I have this sense that there is something inherent in the nature, in the structure of the DNA of these revolutionary movements, that when they're neighboring each other and they support each other, they tend to develop tensions.
I would think so. I had a retired diplomat, Mutaboba, on the podcast a few weeks back. And when I asked him about Rwanda's strategic alignment in the region, he said, everything lives and dies by interests. You know, you try to have discussions, but your interests come first. What I don't understand about, and maybe you can help educate me, is in the larger context of things, right? So even off camera, we're talking about Elon Musk, and he's going to soon be the first trillionaire in the world. I feel that as we are having these little, for us they're big, but in the wider scheme of things, they're quite small. These little tiffs, you know, is coming together. The Western world, not the Western world, the US is on the war footing. The Chinese are on a war footing, and not necessarily hot war, but a war of resources, a war of influence, a war of geopolitical significance. Why you'd think that two nations like ours that are not just married because of revolutionary backgrounds, we're literally married even physically. A lot. My mother is from here. My father is from Rwanda. I know so many people. Whether, you know, when we talk about the first 27, you know, out of those 27, you have, you know, great Fred Rwigema and Paul Kagame. You have Raboni, I think, from Toro, who was fighting in the RPA. Why our links are deep, even within, you know, the kingdom of Buganda and the former kingdom of Rwanda. The love is deep. The relationships are so deep. Why is it that even within what you've described, which is, you know, strategic competition, why does it have to be us against you instead of us against them?
First, I watched an interview recently of Julius Nyerere, a fine brain. Nyerere was arguing that the problem, he wanted to delay the independence of Tanganyika at the time, so that Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania, which had a common currency and common services, get independence on the same day as one country. He said the mistake of an East African Federation was to allow independence of each of these countries. Then, once you create lines on a map and say this is a country, a nation, and give it independence, people want to hold on to that what they have gotten rather than try to. So he's a very insightful person, which is surprising because in 1963, Nkrumah argued that regional integration will undermine African Continental Union. Anything you create will undermine the continental government. So Nkrumah was against regional bodies. Yes, which Nyerere was advocating. And Nyerere opposed Nkrumah at the OU conference between 22nd May to 25th May 1963 in Addis Ababa, because when Nkrumah argued like that, Nyerere said, we don't have a Napoleon or a Bismarck who will conquer the whole of Africa. So we should go for regional integration. So I was surprised that actually I had already given an interview saying, once you allow the small thing to exist, it will create interest within that small geographic space that will want to preserve it that way. So that is it. That once you have a country called Rwanda and Uganda, let me put this way. Remember that the RDF and the UPDF are the most serious militaries in Africa. Africa doesn't have armies. You've seen the South African armies. They couldn't even help Mozambique. They were in Mozambique before Rwanda went there. You are aware? And they did nothing. So South Africa is the most industrialized country in Africa. You have seen the army of Nigeria. That's the largest economy in Africa. It can't even kill a mosquito, that army. So the UPDF and the RDF are these powerful organic armies. If they worked together, they can turn many things around in Africa. If you are a European grand strategist, an American grand strategist, or a Chinese or Indian, outside of Africa, your interest is not to have Uganda and Rwanda cooperate.
Exactly.
Because their cooperation is a threat to your interests. You are built to manipulate this region.
Yes.
When you set Kigali and Kampala at loggerheads, then you know you can exploit their conflict to get your way. Now, President Museveni,
so we know
President
this.
Museveni, I'm sure, and President Kagame see it. But can I tell you something? It's like a person who is addicted to cocaine or alcohol.
Yes.
You know that they know I have a problem of alcohol or I have a problem of drugs, but they just can't stop. So I think that the power is like other forms of addiction, that we sometimes think that people will follow
Logic.
Logic, or what you call the best an optimum course of things. But I think human affairs don't work that way. It is very frustrating. And for me, because I was there, if I had been, I told you, I knew the Rwandan concerns. If I had full power to address them, I felt they were small. Okay, if they were small, they were things Uganda could address to their satisfaction. Now, of course, I'm not a Ugandan decision maker. It's possible that I am blind to certain interests, fears, and anxieties Uganda had, which were not told to me. And I'm sure the Ugandans feared to explain them to me because
you might be a spy.
I might be a spy. So, but even if I am a spy, I think I'm the best spy because if you may want Kagame to understand your fears, you see, the only way I can resolve my conflicts with you is for you to be honest with me. So I could use Andrew Mwenda to send a message to Kigali that
these are the problems.
These are the problems. And they may appear to you in Kigali stupid, but for us they matter, right? And the people in Kigali are not stupid also. They could perhaps understand your context. But I felt, and remember I'm constrained, I don't want to criticize my country, but I was really frustrated because I felt we as Uganda were not giving a clear position outside of bars and rumors and guys, security people meeting me by the street side or coming to my office and telling me rumors. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Uganda, the Ugandan security establishment did not raise these complaints officially to the government of Rwanda. So it becomes difficult if you are in Kigali's shoes. I'll give you a simple example. Rwanda sent us a list of 240 names with the files of people who were considered genocidaires or had been involved with FDLR. On each name, there was a file of details of what these people had done, and they wanted us to arrest them and send them back. And I clearly insisted it should happen. But Uganda also, this is Tumkuda was Minister of Security, said he had 1,000 people, whatever. They said Uganda had been arresting, or Rwanda had been kidnapping people from Uganda and taking them. Now, of course, there are people Uganda had officially arrested and officially handed over to Rwanda. And it frustrated me so much because the Ugandan security was claiming Rwanda has abducted these people. I said, okay, you give me the list of every Rwandan who was abducted by the Rwandan government from Uganda. And don't just give a name. I can go and write 500 names or 20,000 or 1 million. Give a file the Rwanda have given to us. These are the details. It was Sunny. He was arrested on this day, from this place. This is a photograph. This is identity. There must be detail. A mere presence of a name does not tell anything. Tumukunde is still alive. As a Minister of Security giving me information of this type. It was so frustrating. So you want me to take these names? The other people who were there, I knew how they had been handed over. They had been handed over officially by government of Uganda. So, and Uganda was saying Rwanda kidnapped them. It became so frustrating for me. By the way, I should tell you, in 2018, I made a deliberate decision that let me stop going to Rwanda because people here are going to put me into a lot of trouble. I spent 4 years without going to Rwanda until MK, God bless Muhoozi Kainerugaba, intervened and had this matter resolved. Maybe you should interview him. He will tell you.
You'll see what you can do.
Because I had these issues. Up to now, I appeal to the Ugandan government and security establishment. Let them raise these issues they have with Rwanda and let us discuss with Rwanda. If Rwanda fails to respond appropriately, then we can hold them accountable and can say they have led to the collapse of the relationship. So that's why I'm advising you should go and read my articles then. We had issues with the electricity transmission line, we had issues with the standard gauge rail, we had so many issues where Rwanda felt Uganda is deliberately frustrating it, where I felt Uganda should explain what are the impediments. You may wish to know that at one time, I even called delegations of Uganda and Rwanda in Kigali, Minister of Finance of Uganda or Minister of Action of Uganda, on this side, as if I was anything, to try to say, we agree in the meeting, we have a position, we come back to Uganda, the Ugandans have changed. Or for that matter, what was agreed cannot be done. Now, let me again be kind and fair to my country. You've seen our roads are broken. So how can we are failing to do our own roads? Maybe you could say, Ugandans commit to many things they cannot do. Every day we promise we're going to do roads, we don't do them. We're going to build hospitals, we don't. Or sometimes we build ghost hospitals and ghost schools. Maybe this is where Rwanda needs to think about Uganda like this, that we have our own internal problems that make it difficult for us to live up to our own commitments.
Promises.
Yes.
So again, you've discussed something. So you've named some, what I'd call the old guard, right? Mukunde, and you haven't
Then
mentioned...
there was the others. I never had discussions with them. They avoided me. Abel Kanduho
Yes.
was manufactured because he went, and I had kids I used to take to Rwanda. At Makerere University, I would rent a bus, take them, because I wanted younger Ugandans to see what is happening in Rwanda, to show them it's possible to be a poor country with good infrastructure. There are things you can do. President Kagame always says this: it is not true that because we are poor, then we are fated to live in potholes and garbage. So I will take them to roads in Rwanda, which are community done. This is a road, all of us, we're in Kololo here. This is a very rich place. An acre of land here goes for $3.5 million. Can you believe that? $3.5 million. So the people who live here, each one of them is living in a house of $5 million, $10 million, or $6 million. Apartments of $500,000. In Rwanda, people come together and raise money and call the city authorities and say, we have raised this amount of money. What contribution can you do? We want to do our road here. And it's done. That is a sense of community, which is lacking here. So I would take these younger Ugandans to Rwanda to see these things, to the hospitals, to public parks, to see that a better country and a better city is possible. Uganda and Rwanda fall apart. Kanho begins arresting these kids. He would go to Facebook. Imagine Facebook, where they posted pictures of themselves in Rwanda. Says, these are Kagame spies. Some had joined the Air Force. Others had joined ISO. Others the UPDF. Others, they were all over the state institutions of Uganda.
That's crazy.
That Mwenda had... and Kagame were plotting and placing them in all these. These kids were arrested for 2-3 years. I suffered enormous guilt on my head because I put them, some of them were in jail until MK took charge of the situation and started releasing. Yes. I don't want even to cry again until it was so painful for me because these kids, I put them in serious trouble. What had they done? Nothing. They didn't even know anybody in Rwanda. The only connection to Rwanda was me. Now, all of a sudden, in the Air Force, he's a Kagame agent. In ISO, he's a Kagame agent. In UPDF, in the police, they were all hounded out. Now, I asked Kando, one time I met with him at Saleh's place. If you are Rwanda, you see these things happening in Uganda. There's a time Tumukunde came and told me that I think he even called Kaka, actually. Kaka was the head of ISO. And on phone, that the Kagame had infiltrated 1,000 fighters in Mwenda there, about to come and take over government of Uganda. These fictions, I don't know whether the president in this country believed these things, you see. But this is the kind of information these people are peddling. So I don't know. The greatness of Muhoozi is to come and end this kind of impunity. People here in Uganda can do, but they could have taken 2 countries to war. Henry Tumukunde single-handedly could have caused a war by assuming Uganda not try to verify and also redeploy. You know, if Uganda deployed, Rwanda sees actual deployments and also deploys. Then all of a sudden you have an escalation. And let me tell you, in those situations, sometimes countries can go to war even when the 2 leaders of each country are committed to avoiding a war. Why? Because when a standoff is escalated, leaders may think that any form of withdrawal or stepping down, they may lose their aura of greatness or the authority to lead. So you can find a war breaking out. You should study, there is a book called Guns of August by Barbara Tuchman. It's about the outbreak of the First World War. How misinformation and miscommunication led the world into a conflagration. There's another book, Sleepwalkers. I can't remember the author. It's about the First World War. The First World War was a series of mistakes. And for me, having read those books, having spent a lot of time talking to President Kagame about these things, and of course talking to General Muhoozi here, I'm always afraid that this Ukraine thing, you can have a nuclear war tomorrow. Ukraine is the worst thing to happen in the world. And people take it lightly. So, if you read the Peloponnesian War, both Archimedes II, the king of Sparta, and Pericles, the ruler of Athens, were actually personal friends, and they were committed to avoiding the war. But you should read Thucydides' story, the history of the Peloponnesian War. The war breaks out because of this miscommunication. So I was trying to show you, again, my side of Uganda, which I was seeing. And I felt people here were trading in fake intelligence or had maneuvers they were doing, which were quite risky.
Why would they do that? It does not seem.
I have not the
It does
slightest
not
clue.
seem clever or logical.
Sunny,
And-
I
and
have
that-
no clue. I have no clue.
You know, it's scary because, you know, as the led, when we look at our leaders, sometimes a leader will do something and you'll say, I don't fully understand this, but maybe I don't understand it because I don't have enough information.
Correct.
It almost, from your little insight, it's giving me, I'm a little bit afraid because it then seems like the leaders actually don't know what they're doing.
It's possible.
And that they will throw us. And it doesn't have to be about Uganda or Congo. But then I think this is Uganda and Rwanda. But because it's maybe telling me something about realpolitik and how intelligence services can mislead politicians, how interests can be misaligned. It's super scary. And again, as one of the led, I certainly hope that my politicians are not messing around with our lives, because these are real human beings.
To avoid things like that, if I was a president of a country, thank heavens I'm not, is if your subordinates know that there are adverse consequences for doing things like that, they will never do them.
Here they are not. Isn't Mukwende going back to parliament? Isn't he a minister?
I do not know. But
No.
anyway, he was
right
removed.
Yes.
From that incident, he was, I think, removed 4 months later. I hope it's 1 or 2. I do not know.
I think he's minister now.
He's not.
He's not a
He's
minister.
not a minister, yes. He was dropped after that incident. He was dropped maybe within 4. That was in December. He was dropped in March. Whatever the reasons he was dropped, I don't know whether they corrected that incident or whatever it is. But that is my recollection of the events at that time. But you see, what I should tell you about governments do not act on the basis of truth. Governments act on the basis of information they have and believe to be true.
Or want to be true.
Now, the problem is that sometimes governments can actively manipulate, intelligence officials can manipulate intelligence information to achieve particular ends. So information may be given to a president in order to achieve an aim. A president can act genuinely, in the genuine belief that what he's doing is the right course of action because he's been given wrong information. So running the government is a very difficult business. Governments, of course, have intelligence and counterintelligence. But when your system gets compromised, you can end up acting
outside your own best interests.
Yes, you can be self-destructive. You should read a lot of the history of America, most recent history of America, about the involvement in Vietnam, how the American military and security and foreign policy establishment, when I say establishment, it's not just the ministry, the State Department, but the think tanks, the military-industrial complex that profit from this war and the thinking they have shaped, how they continually misled the government and themselves about the progress of the war until 20 years later. The Taliban were growing stronger and stronger. Now, this is the most industrialized, most sophisticated country with the best brains, the best universities. You should read a book called The Afghanistan Papers, or another book called something written by Scott Horton on Afghanistan. It is incredible to see how the US government would lie itself. The military would tell lies. They would do, they would not tell lies, but they would manipulate the truth. Like they would say, the Taliban, the American casualties have gone up. Rather than say we are being beaten, they say it is because we have intensified our operations against them. That's why we're receiving a lot of casualties. If we hadn't increased. So the public thinks that, now there is serious pushback that is happening. When America was there for 20 years and they spent $2.1 trillion and left military equipment worth more than 200 billion on the ground. Why? It's because they were lying to each other. So Uganda and Rwanda have to think about these things.
So your friend, when you were blessing the skies for Muhoozi, how right now, at the time he was not CDS.
He was CLF,
Yes.
Command of the Land Forces.
Yes. Now he is. What is he doing? Because he's one of the things that he loves to talk about is, he would tweet Rukundo Rugume, right? Let love continue between Rwanda and he's tweeted very positive things about the RDF and talking about the brotherhood between the UPDF and the RDF. Do you think he, as the CDF, understands? Because we talked about, when we're talking about the global order and, how these two armies are sometimes at loggerheads. Do you think with him at the helm of this of the UPDF, that finally our two mighty revolutionary armies can sit down and actually map out a way to push our interests? Sit down, understand what our military interests are, how they align, how they don't align so that we don't knock each other, and how we then make things work for the both of us. Do you think he has that ability? Do you think that that's something that he wants to do?
So I first want to put a caveat on what I'm going to say. General Mhozi is not the president of Uganda. He's not the commander-in-chief.
Sure.
So ultimately, he's not an honorary CDF. He's a son of the president. So to that degree, he has greater influence than any CDF who has ever since General Salim Saleh. That's what I would imagine. Nobody can match the kind of influence he can exercise before. But we have to admit the fact that he is not the commander-in-chief.
Yes.
So the final decisions cannot be done by him.
Yes.
He can be overruled, he can be directed or instructed to do things. And he cannot defy any order given to him. I just want you to understand that.
Understand that.
Now,
what does he want?
So let me now begin with the person called Mhozi. Of all the Africans, not just Ugandans, Africans or human beings on this planet that I've talked to, and I talked to many on grand strategy, he's, I think, one of the best read, well intellectually tuned to understand these issues we are discussing. The position of Africa in the world, the fact that our small countries face a serious security threat in the sense that our survival as viable nations cannot be guaranteed if you're not cooperating, if you're not friendly. So Mhozi understands that. He has also, you have seen his tweets, he has a strong commitment to a cordial and wonderful relationship between Uganda and Rwanda. If you had the final say on these things, Rwanda and Uganda would have... I don't know, because you see, I don't think from how he thinks and how he approaches things and his attitude towards President Kagame, whom he admires immensely, his love of Rwanda as a brother country, we will not have these differences. Again, I can put a caveat that sometimes countries can have interests that conflict independent of the personal relationship between individuals. I told you about Archidamus II, the king of Sparta, and Pericles. By the way, I should tell you, Wilhelm II, the emperor of Germany at the beginning of the First World War, was a grandson of Queen Victoria of England. So he was a nephew to Edward VII, the king of England, when the two countries went to war. So, and he had grown with his grandmother in England, spoke better English than German. So I'm always conscious of the fact that if I say an absolute, I don't know. But what I can say for now, my assessment is, one Mhozi wants a relationship between Uganda and Rwanda that is cordial because he believes it's for the benefit of the two countries. But it's also for the benefit of Africa, because when the two of us quarrel, we weaken this continent. He understands the importance of strategic security and why African armies need to cooperate. So if he had his way throughout, Uganda and Rwanda would have a defense pact, joint military operations, we would do all these things together. What other things would happen subsequently, I don't know. But for now, that's what I can say. Yes, he understands the value of this relationship. He desires a very good relationship between the two of us, and that's why he had to take the necessary risk. I don't know, you said you have no knowledge of Uganda. I'm telling you, in the Ugandan establishment here, to say something positive about Rwanda, let me be specific about Prince Kagame. I think you will be closed out of most of the systems here. There is a way things are arranged. Like
Why does it seem like his name is so poisonous here?
I don't want to go into answering that question.
But then
My views may cause problems.
We'll talk off camera. But
so those are the issues that they have with people here. They have what I would call maybe petty grievances. I don't know, whatever it is anyway. But he is the one person who stands above that. There are prejudices here, petty jealousies, I don't know what, that drive people here that I see. So he stands above that because he doesn't have it. That's why he can say President Kagame is my uncle, whoever is against my... He is the most liberated human being from these Rwandan prejudices. He doesn't have them. And that is what gives me a lot of confidence that if he remains in charge of many things here, it's not impossible, but it will be difficult for the spoilers to rock the boat.
The bloody spoilers. Let's go back to Rwanda. We've touched on the Uganda-Rwanda relations. Maybe when we spoke last, we also talked about how we're talking about the PAC and your place in it. Now, this year's PAC was held maybe 2 months ago in the swanky Kigali Golf Club. I saw you. You appeared on my Twitter. One, I had beef that you did not tell me you were coming so that I could take you out for a coffee, but that's fine. It's another fight for another day. But obviously, you discussed very important things in that meeting. What are those important things that brings such eminent people like yourself, like Louise Mushikiwabo, like Donald Kaberuka, to fly in, Michael Fairbanks, to fly into Kigali, just to sit down for one day and talk about the most important matters? What were the matters this time?
We discussed two issues. One was Rwanda's economic vision, the vision of the country, how to transform Rwanda, and what is being done about it. The second is the discussions between Kigali and Kinshasa and the agreement they signed in Washington, D.C. And a minor discussion on the issues between M23 and Kinshasa, the talks that are taking place in Doha.
Tell me more. So let's talk about one. I think Rwanda's grand mission is at some level quite well known, right? So we have the EDPRS 2, which is our development plan from 2025 to 2029. And then we have, I think, Vision 2035, which is, getting Rwanda to upper middle class. And then Vision 2050, that is saying Rwanda will be a rich nation. We know this. But then when you guys are sitting in the rooms, when you're now actually discussing the minutiae of these plans,
the details, yes.
What is the minutiae?
So there was a presentation by Minister Godfrey Kabera,
yes,
who is the Minister of State for Finance,
yes,
and a presentation by Jean-Guy Africa,
the CEO of
RDB, on Rwanda's plans, first of all, around Bugesera Airport, finishing with the airport and the logistics hub that is going to be built there so that Rwanda becomes the logistics hub for this region. And then the Formula One circuit that is going to be put there because Rwanda wants to host Formula One. This is what I like about President Kagame and Rwanda. By every measure, South Africa wanted to host Formula One and failed. Now, of course, you have Algeria, you have Egypt, you have Nigeria, you have all these, Kenya. There are many African countries that have much more than Rwanda, and they don't feel competent to do it. But President Kagame feels Rwanda can do it. Doesn't that inspire you? So I saw when he finished, he was walking out. A journalist asked him as he was walking, and he stopped, and he said, "But your country is small and poor, and how can you do this?" He said, "We don't see ourselves like that," and it came so natural to him. We don't see ourselves like that. So you may think Rwanda is small and poor with a small population, a small geographical space, a small economy. Rwanda is actually For that matter, at least the Rwandan president has convinced the Rwandans that that's not who they are. They are something big. They play in the Premier League. So that is, we're looking at Rwanda's plans on electrical generation, on infrastructure development, on aviation, on tourism, and how in the next 10 years, I think 10 years or 15 years, Rwanda wants to have its GDP multiplied 5 times, which is incredible. The second thing we are discussing is Congo, which I think the argument is fairly good between Kigali and Kinshasa, in the sense that Kinshasa commits it will fight FDLR, which I wonder whether they can, because FDLR is part of the presidential guard there, it's part of the army, and it's most effective fighting force of FADC. So how can Kinshasa cut the hand that feeds it? So I'm not so sure about, you see, you can trust Rwanda's commitments, what of Kinshasa's commitments, that's one. The second, they also reached an agreement that, okay, you can, because of the instability in Congo, investors are not going to put their money there. Minerals can be mined in Congo and refined in Rwanda. I don't see how Congolese elites
will allow that to happen.
Can accept that, which is in the interest of Congo. But in the emotional feelings of sovereignty by the Congolese elites, that may not fly. So I cannot say cautiously optimistic, because I don't think I'm even optimistic. In any case, I don't think that the elites in Kinshasa there and their president have a commitment to their country as opposed to a commitment to themselves and their interests as individuals.
Let's go back to the economics, because I know that's something that you really love. You've said that Rwanda has a plan to almost more than quadruple its GDP. So right
Quintuple,
now,
actually.
Quintuple. So right now we're about $1,000. That would be, in 15 years, that would go up to $5,000 per person per capita. One of the things that we kind of discussed offline was in terms of how much, because everything costs money, right? So money, we either having, you can have as many development plans as you want, but do you have the cash to sustain those development plans? Do you want to build small modular reactors, nuclear reactors? You need at least a couple $100 million. You want to build a national stadium? That costs money. You want to build warehousing around the Bugesera airport? That costs money. It's well known that Rwanda we're not as rich as we'd want to be. Where is the money coming from? Because obviously, I'm sure you asked that question, right? So you see all these plans. The natural question is, where's the money coming from?
Well, I do not think that rich countries are rich because they had money. They have money because they are rich. So money is not what drives the transformation of a country. It's the ideas of entrepreneurship, of management that drive a country. So Bill Gates Elon Musk is not worth 429 billion today or yesterday because he had money. No, it's because he had ideas. So Rwanda has the most important thing, ideas. Maybe Rwanda is constrained in terms of the human capital to execute the ideas that the president and his colleagues in RPF are able to articulate. We see Rwanda's biggest constraint is is human resource. If Kagame had the skills Ruto in Kenya has, the ballgame would be different. Let me tell you, there are 3 constraints to Rwanda. Constraint 1, geographical location. Rwanda is in a very bad neighborhood. Just look the other side, Burundi, failed state. Congo, not even a failed state, an absentee state. Those are costs. Then you have seen these problems in Tanzania, but that's your gateway to the sea. Then Uganda has its own problems. Our roads are falling apart, but you have to depend also on us. So those, your neighbors impose upon you as Rwanda serious constraints on your vision. That is constraint 1. Constraint 2, human resource. There was no education in Rwanda until 1994.
There was education.
Please. Do you know how many doctors were in Rwanda when RPF took over?
Not more than 100.
21 doctors they found in the country. RPF had 36. A rebel group had more doctors than the country. Rwanda Supreme Court in 1994 did not have a single lawyer on it. The system of education, they would admit maybe 10 students to study medicine. By the time they finish 5 years of medicine, they have graduated only 4. But you see, that cohort, until they had finished the 5 years, they will not admit any other student. Did you know that?
No.
They do not have this idea that you can have medical students year 1, year 2, no. They would admit once every 5 years. And they would graduate around 4. So there are many constraints. The idea of building, remember that the principle under Habyarimana, and it's interesting, I should tell you, by the way, I've never had President Kagame refer to Habyarimana and the previous government. And maybe that's why Rwanda performs. Many African leaders are focused on complaining about the past. For him, he's always talking about the future. But under Habyarimana, they used to have a principle called umurimo nukuhinga, ebindi namahirwe. Meaning, real work is cultivating the fields. The rest is gambling or luck. Am I translating Kinyarwanda correctly?
Correct.
Of course, RPF and Kagame come and say 1 laptop per child. You can see the leap from believing that all work should be people living in the gardens to people, every kid having a laptop. So Rwanda's advantage, therefore, so I've told you the constraints. And you're asking where will money come from? Money will follow ideas. Ideas don't follow money. That is one. The second thing is I felt in that Presidential Advisory Council meeting we had that the Rwandan Ministry of Finance is very conservative. And I think this conservativeness emerges from the fact that they have consumed a large dose of IMF, World Bank, neoliberal thinking about economic transformation. You see, the World Bank and IMF's ideas are very good. They can give you what I call short-term allocative efficiency. Resources will be efficiently allocated to those who are supposed to use them. But that short-term allocative efficiency does not address the issue of structural transformation that lies at the heart of the development process and the needs of that structural transformation. So Rwanda has a debt to GDP ratio of 75%.
What does that mean? Just quickly for people who don't understand.
So assuming your GDP is 14 billion. So how much is your debt relative to that GDP? If it's 10 billion, then you're about to 60% or something like that. So Rwanda's debt to GDP ratio is 75. And remember, we have this idea that it should be kept at below 50. I have never known why somebody came and drew a line in the sand and said GDP, debt to GDP ratio should not exceed 50%. GDP is not the resource of a country. So why would it be based on that? In any case, the most important indicator is your ability to service your loans. Now, let me give you about Rwanda's debt. Rwanda's domestic debt, the one that is denominated in its own dollars.
Its own francs.
Rather, its own currency. It costs Rwanda only 5% of her revenue to pay local debt. But a country cannot default on a debt issued in its own currency because this is something you have monopoly power to print. Your only fear is inflation. Right? The second is the foreign currency denominated debt. That takes only 9% of Rwanda's foreign exchange earnings.
9%.
9. Now, let me tell you this. In 1990, when Africa was in serious economic doldrums, most African countries' debt service obligations exceeded 100% of their foreign exchange earnings. 100%. The World Bank did a big study in 1989, 1990, Africa Development Report, something like that. They did a study showing the financial crisis Africa was facing because debt service ratios to export earnings were 150%. That's why the IMF was rescheduling their loans and stuff like that. So I felt like this. So as the Minister of Finance, you need to look at a country's net financial assets, the country's ability to service its loans, its foreign exchange earnings, and its domestic revenues. So debt service takes about 30% of domestic revenue. So I'll address two things where I feel this is a contribution I made, that this obsession with debt to GDP had something. If Rwanda wants to transform, the issue is not the debt to GDP ratio, or it is what are the productivity gains or the growth gains you're going to get from any particular investment. That should be the basis of making a choice, not what is the ratio of debt to GDP. If I'm indebted right now, it does not necessarily mean that me borrowing more
It's a bad thing.
is a bad thing. Assuming I'm borrowing more to invest in something which will give me the returns even to clear the other debt. You see. So I felt in the presentation, these details were not given to us. It was not possible for me, therefore, to make a judgment that you're in a bad debt situation. But I think a country like Rwanda, which has a very good way of using the money given to it, should not look at the debt to GDP, and should, even inflation, targeting it at 5% is not a good thing. Because, okay, why 5%? Why not 2% or 10% or 20%? Because your inflationary target cannot be an end in itself, as IMF presents it to everyone. It must be a means to an end. If your end is driving economic growth, achieving high levels of employment, industrializing and all that, you may need to have a higher rate of inflation in order to create more opportunities. Now, you can say inflation devalues the wages of fixed income earners. Yes, but I could also say I can protect the wage of Sane, who is employed now, but at the cost of creating opportunities for John, Derek, and James to get jobs. So my own view of Rwanda is that Rwanda should think in a transformative way, not looking at, they should not be like accountants, they should be like entrepreneurs. And I was very happy in the meeting. Donald Kaberuka really agrees with me. He came very strong on my side.
Fantastic. Let's kind of move.
But I should tell you, in 1850, the debt to GDP ratio of Britain and France was 200% of GDP.
In 1850, and that's when they
1815,
were
at the end of the Napoleonic Wars.
But they were poor. Let's.
And unlike Rwanda, they had spent their money fighting wars. That debt had been accumulated to fight wars, rather than to build infrastructure that can give them future productivity gains. So I don't think that this debt to GDP ratio is something that we should take seriously.
Quick question. Well, among the worries with Rwanda, when I talk to people, is everything seems to be predicated on the presidency of President Kagame. Like a lot of the hopes and dreams, and this is not just Rwandans, it's even Ugandans, it's even Americans. When I speak to them and they say, everything is working well, but we don't know what happens when the old man leaves, who's not actually old, he's only 68.
I was about to punch your nose.
Yeah, no, he's not really old. I'm just saying, I'm speaking Muse, as we call him, Muse Watch, our old man, with love. Have you ever had a chance, so his present term ends in 2029. He's able to have another one that ends constitutionally, that ends in 2034. When you speak to him, when you've been in his home, you see how much of a family man he is, how much time, because of the presidency, he's not able to spend with his lovely grandkids and his other businesses and his other passions and maybe his love of aviation. One of the things that I try to understand is, once we hit 2028, when it's getting closer to the end of this present term, I keep wondering, what next? Have you ever spoken to him and kind of had the sense of, I'm going to do something after 2029? Or do you have a sense of he is ready to go, not to abandon Rwanda, but rather to pass on the torch to the young generation that has already been put in strategic positions?
So I'm going to answer by giving you a background. One, I honestly believe that if there is anybody who is committed to leaving power graciously, voluntarily, and easily, that I know, is President Paul Kagame.
That you know?
Yes, yes, yes.
You know many people.
I know many people. He is very, very light about it. Why? Because I have been studying this man. Actually, I was one time approached by The Economist. I don't know whether they were, in newspapers, for powerful people, you write obituaries. So that if a person dies, you just go update it and print.
Yeah.
Or whether I do not know whether they're doing a profile on him. So they sent a journalist from South Africa interviewed me. Another time they called me again and
that was when was that? Recently?
2 months ago. Then someone came from Kenya for The Economist to interview me. So I'll share with you what I even shared with them. So I was telling them the thing about him is that if you have stayed around, Kagame has a life that is so rich and wide that the presidency is a great thing for him to be transforming Rwanda, but it is not his entire life. It's an aspect of his life. So let me begin with family. I have done videos and those now my phone is blocked. But I'm very happy with my videos because you can see when he's at home playing with his grandchildren, dining with his wife and his children. He has a close, knit family, and their relationship, the camaraderie among them is something that brings him a lot of fulfillment and satisfaction and meaning. So he's most relaxed at home. And the greatness of that man is that when he leaves office and goes home, you can never go to Prince Kagame's home, whether it is in Muhazi or in that person,
yes,
Gako, or even in Kigali at his home. You don't find the president of Rwanda there. You'll find a father, a friend, a husband, a grandfather, an uncle. I don't know how he's able to do that. You cannot find the president of Rwanda in his home. He's separated. So he's able to host his friends, his family, talk and relax. So that is one. It is something that is meaningful to him, and the president takes that from him. 2, his interest in sports. He watches Formula One, watches basketball, tennis. Ask him about any tennis player or a tennis game. Soccer. All of you guys know soccer, but so he's into all these sports things that consume a lot of his time and give him satisfaction, give him pleasure, give him relaxation. Then I have told you his interest in business. Look, RPF has an investment company called Crystal Ventures. He's its patron, yes. I can tell you 98% of the ideas that drive that business are his. They're his ideas. So he is a brilliant business entrepreneur. Now, his knowledge of military issues, geopolitical issues. Then he has friends. President Kagame, if things were easy and he was visiting Uganda, he can come here to visit me. I've been with him in New York or London and elsewhere. He has friends. They go out to dinner. I have driven him in Kigali, by the way. Not him. Which car? But sometimes I drive one of those presidential vehicles. We go to a restaurant. You have lunch at a restaurant in Kigali. Banyarwanda walk over to him, ask for selfies and take pictures with him. You should know this. He goes out to restaurants in Kigali. So he has such a rich life to visit friends, to go and attend games, attend weddings and funerals, play sports, do business, spend time with the family. He has so much to do that he has more than enough to fill
the plate.
The plate if he leaves office. So it is easier for him. For so many people I know, it is much, much more easier for him to leave office. The great psychologist Erik Erikson said that the great life requires a creative balance between 3 realms: love, work, and play. So that is love of family and friends and community. Then work is the job that you do because it also brings you satisfaction and a purpose. And then play to find something that is extracurricular, whether it is swimming, going into cinema, going in for poetry, things like that, or going for games, sports and stuff. And he argues that to pursue one to the exclusion of others leads to sadness in later life. While to pursue all the 3 with equal dedication leads not only to a life of fulfillment, but also a life of serenity. That is Paul Kagame. Because he has an equal balance of all those 3 realms. And I don't think he has read Erik Erikson. So his personal commitment to family, to friends, and to his community. That Rwanda you see there, that is his signature, I can tell you. I do not think if he was not there. Okay, there is some potential in Rwandans which has exploited and used to achieve that signature. Clean roads, well-polished security forces, and an honest bureaucracy. Rwanda has, I told you, has a problem of human capital, but why does it punch above its nose? It's because he has been able to cultivate, or from what you would say, recultivate the Rwandan identity. There is a Nobel laureate in economics called George Akerlof. He wrote a book with Rachel Cranton called Identity Economics. In it, he argues what makes a great country, a great organization, a great company, stroke, firm, FIRM, or a great individual.